I got it.
Oh, you're doing it. Do you have the slides?
Yep.
I do. Do you want them immediately?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
But some of this stuff tonight, is reviewed from the labs. We want to go through the slides again, and then we'll share some of the work after our last meeting that we tried to come up with some additional solutions. I will say before Tina gets started, we've had several conversations with the county auditor, county administrator, trying to get us to where we hope to be locally without requesting any type of millage increase. There is no millage increase request on the day. And we're very workable to try to increase our local revenues. And so I do feel very confident in the plan we have in place. The other thing that I'll say publicly is a part of this plan you will see that's in your budget binder is some cost reductions on our end as well, so that we can demonstrate we have some skin in the game as well, the increased revenue and the reductions on areas of redundancy we have and things that are not necessarily have tos, but maybe want to, so we can forego. So just to lay the foundation.
Are you, is that a lot of that based on the assessed value for county property?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, the assessed, and you'll see that in here when we go through, the assessments have gone up. And you all know, if you've been on the board for a little while, we always end up with extra revenue at the end of the year based on tax collections. And this is going to be a reassessment year as well. And so I think he was conservative with it, but still, it was an increased revenue for us based on the growth in our AV.
So this is our April 22nd workshop. Also public input. And tell me if I turn on. Okay. Yeah. TV public.
Mary reads.
Okay, Mary Rita's here.
Hi, Mary
I
Rita.
didn't see you behind me. I didn't see what she said. But, yes, if we could allow some time just for public input in case anybody has anything, this is a time where the board gets together and listens to ideas from the public as to, our budget. The first item that we have is our budget calendar. You see, we've already been working since the beginning of January and been working hard. Tomorrow, actually, the Senate begins their budget meeting. So it's been through the House Ways and Means, it's been through the House, it's been through the Senate Finance. So tomorrow starts the actual full Senate debate. Then it will go to conference committee, which will be the second week of May. And then we'll see what comes out of that, if they can agree on everything. If not, then they are supposed to have their budget conference report June 18th. So hopefully way before then, we will know what our state numbers are, because again, that accounts for 75% of our budget. Lisa and I are going on this Wednesday. Maybe we'll have some to Columbia to hear any updates, hopefully from the legislative process that's happening that starts tomorrow for our finance roundtable meeting with the discuss group. So we have slated right now that our school board will have a presentation to county council on May 13th, and then May 20th will be the public hearing. Budget presentation, and then June 10th will be the approval of the school board, is what we have going on right now.
I don't envision a lot of changes from what we'll present to the county, and we'll just remind them if it's draft. They don't approve your budget, you approve your budget, but we'll give them as close to, finalized numbers as we can.
So as we had stated last time, our budget priorities are to recruit and retain teachers and staff. Recruit on one column, retain the next column, because they're both very big items, both of them individually. Then also, of course, support student achievement.
So with teacher salaries being one of our top priorities for next year, we wanted to present a couple of tables that we presented at the last workshop again. The first is a salary comparison to some of our neighbors and some like-sized districts in the state. Just to give you the layout of the schedule again, the rows are our neighboring districts and like-sized districts. The first column that is in the white shows the maximum steps on each of those districts' salary scales. And then the next 5 groups are our groups of education levels. So the first set of greens are bachelor's level teachers. If you look at the Dorchester 2 line, 43.5 is our current starting salary for a bachelor's teacher just starting out. And then $67,001 is our step 28 for that group. And then following that across, the next group are the bachelor's plus 18. The next green is master's. The white is master's plus 30. And then the final green is doctorate column. So everyone's schedules are a little bit different as far as number of steps and the step increments, but this is just giving a picture of how we currently compare to other districts. The following page shows the history of our starting teacher salaries. In FY18, you'll see that our bachelor step 0 was $36,124, and from there we've gone up every year. We proposed $49,000 as a starting salary for FY25, and that is a 12.64% increase over our FY24 starting salary of $43,500. And if you look at the history from FY18 through this proposal for FY25, that's a 36% increase over that time period.
And that's $2,000 above the minimum that the state is requiring us.
And then just to make sure that everybody understands, so that also changes the remainder of the cells.
It does by that dollar amount. The percentages won't fall all the way through, but it gives the exact same amount per cell.
Per cell.
What was that total again?
5,500.
5,500.
So 3,500 is the minimum required. And again, it's just our start. Yes.
And you also see when we get a little further into the budget that we're also recommending to increase our schedule out to 30 years from 28 years. So you'd add 2 more steps. The next slide is just our operating millage increase history. And since 2020, we've been at 183.6. Up until last year, we were maxed out at a 15% cash reserve. And so we've been able to manage, because our increased assessed value, I do believe that's been one thing that's allowed us to manage where we are. And so even though our millage has been stable and static, our AV is going up, which is generating more revenue for us. See that in the page. Next page just shows that if this was a health class, we'd be flatlined. Again, so if you take a look at the assessed value, the millage, and then that generates your revenue. So again, because our AV is going up, it's generating more revenue for us that we're able to put into our budget. Also, on top of that, because we've been very conservative in our forecast with our AV increase, and so is the county, we've ended up with a little more revenue at the end of the year that we didn't budget. So the fund balance slide is where we really get into some of our opportunities to put money into our budget. Again, we were capped for several years at 15%. The GOA recommendations are 16.67%, which is 2 months of operating cash. This year, we're right now at about, I don't know if that's changed, but 23.32%. Again, we have a little bit of an artificial inflation there because of ESSER monies that are liquidating, but we really liquidated a lot of our ESSER monies last year with the bonuses and the stipends and the raises that we put in to our salary schedule last year. So we will talk about what we think would be a good use of those funds to stay at the board's goal of 18% and why we feel confident that that's a good plan moving forward. That's a pretty quick rundown, and then we're going to get into the kind of deeper dive. But
At some point, obviously not for today, can you add in, this is the local revenue stuff? Can we add in the state revenues?
We have
See
another,
that change?
we have
Is that
another
the deep
sheet.
dive?
Yeah,
So local revenue updated with the additional.
This was just, just to show how a millage, how our assessed value increases our revenue generated.
you'll see that.
The actual number is reflected in our reports.
Go back to the state revenue. Can you simplify that one and then you can put it in that front section?
Moving into our detailed schedule on the next page. We're gonna start out on the top left on the section that's called projected new revenues. So we're projecting total new revenues for FY 25 of 20. And that is made up of $10 million increase in local property tax. Due to assessment growth, which we talked about a little earlier. The state funding line, that is our increase in our state aid to classrooms and some other state sources. The second state funding line is our tier 3. That's a $2.8 million increase. That's our basically our Act 388 replacement money. And then there's a line for other state and local revenue sources of $1.6 million. And when we get even a little further back in the presentation, we're going to show you a detailed breakdown of the revenue FY 24 against 25 and see where each of those line items has changed year over year.
So on the other side, we added additional funding sources where that was money in. This is going to be less money out. The first is leftover $660,000 in the decreased technology outsourcing by in-house technology program. You'll see a breakdown here further in the presentation of cost cutting recommendations equating up to $3.4 million. And then the utilization of 4.6 million plus of our cash fund balance to take us down close to our board approved percentage rate.
So the total of those two with the projected new revenues and the additional funding sources gives us a starting point of $30,774,258 in that dark field right there. And then that's what we have used to work on our expenditure requests. So we kind of work a little bit backwards where we meet with all the department directors and all the schools and the principals to find out what are your needs? And then, of course, our needs are more than revenues, but then we have to work our needs into those revenues. So that's what we've done here. So as we go through this, we talked about these line items last time, but we kind of massaged a few of them. The teacher step is a mandate that comes down from the state, and every teacher will get a step. And they also mandated a $3,500 increase to all cells to make the starting salary 47,000. Then, unfortunately, on the employer side, the health insurance is going to increase basically approximately 11.8%. So that is just the employer cost. The employee will not see an increase. So those mandated costs of salaries and benefits are $12.4 million. We have additional salary considerations. Board asked for us to crunch some numbers and add in another $2,000 to have the starting salary increase to 49. So that brings us between salaries and benefits with 4.6, additional 4.6. As Dr. Robbins mentioned, extending the teacher salary steps to 30. We talked about the administrator salary schedule review. Dr. Robbins.
Yeah, and I shared with a couple of you. So that's a placeholder number right now. It's really dependent upon what administrators we start the year next year with. That number could be lower. More than likely, it's going to be lower than that. But we want to put in enough cushion based on our salary study that we flatline those schedules into what would be a consistent schedule moving forward. So again, when we're talking about administrators, you're talking about the district office, you're talking about the buildings, you're talking about your assistant principals, you're talking about all your coordinators and all those district level positions as well. So that number seems large, but it's a lot of positions. And again, as we're crunching this, that's probably a high inflated number, but we'd rather be high than too low in our guesstimate.
Wait, so I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was talking about district positions too.
Yeah, it's all administrators. Yeah, all
No, I didn't
administrators.
realize that either. I thought that was just like building level
No, that's everybody.
principals. Do we have a breakdown of where the proposed 721,207?
Yeah, just remember, like I kind of shared with you, that's just a number. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to peel that down to the levels that you can see per person, what that means.
What positions of the district does that?
Everybody, except for me.
What we were trying to do with the admin salary schedule, currently it was an old schedule that was put into place. So we're trying to move towards the salary study where you have one scale for assistant principals of a certain level and principals of assistant at a certain level. We'll see a couple of those examples back further, but also for those district level positions that are on a scale. And what is yours? What is your education? What is your years? This is based on a scale, which is more in line with what other districts do.
So you're saying it's not going to take into account the education years?
It is.
It is.
No,
Oh,
it
I'm
is.
sorry.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
But based on the actual scale. So right now we look at what the scale is and then you have to use a multiplier.
Yeah.
So these scales, these new proposed scales from the salary study have all of that built into it.
Now, some people are frozen because they're actually above what the salary study suggests. And some people are a little lower. So it just takes all that together. Until we crunch all those numbers, that's just a placeholder number for you.
This will go into effect for next year? At what point will we have a more definitive number?
You just give me a couple more days.
Oh, yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
not,
trying to-
I'm just,
But we still have a few more,
yeah, that's what I'm
we still
asking,
have some time.
like
Yeah.
before the next meeting.
Yeah, you will. Absolutely. I just want to make the spreadsheet this morning. No, I know. I just want it to be.
We can't take it down to the exact dollar, only because as Dr. Robbins said, we don't know exactly who we're gonna be our principals for next year and if they're gonna be moving from a teacher to
The last line. That is stuff.
anyone will be moved from assistant principal to a principal.
Yeah.
So we don't have all of those moves.
Because it's fine,
It can't be an exact, it can't be an exact.
but
number.
it'll be close. It'll be pretty close.
That's understandable.
Okay, we also talked about under the additional salary considerations for non-teacher staff, we always want to include our non-teachers. And an additional increase for the non-teachers of a 2%.
Skipped over the ECA.
Yeah, and we're obviously working on developing a new ECA salary schedule for you as well. So along, same thing with the administrator salary schedule. Hopefully we'll have that a little cleaner here in the next few days for you guys to review. And again, that's designed to get us on a very, I don't want to say simplistic, but a very understandable schedule moving forward that's very transparent and will demonstrate, and again, I've shared with some of you, but I'll say it again. A lot of times when you look at contracts, you put money into the contracts, but you forget about the ECA stipend schedule. And so it falls farther and farther behind. So this ties that stipend schedule into the contract. So when one goes up, the other will automatically.
In the past, we've done our athletic schedule where we've done a little like $50 increase every year as a step for experience. So what we're doing is trying to include all of that into scales that are again comparable to what other districts do. They have a set amount. But as Dr. Robbins said, then the next year when the base teacher salary goes up, they will go up. So for instructional coaches, we haven't gone up on them in years, not since I've been here. So they will be tied to that same type of index where they will go up every year as well for instructional coaches.
The next lines are just FTEs based on growth. So you'll see in the elementary, the additional 12 elementary teachers based on our growth. That is where we're growing the most. And our district is at the elementary level. And then because of our rezoning, the addition of 3 fine arts teachers to cover those buildings. So we've been sharing those positions and now we need to hire 3 more because we can't share them at another location as well. Also to stabilize fine arts across the middle schools. Two fine arts allocations at Austin and Oak Brook Middle School. And then the special education, the big cost is the retention of the social workers that was paid for out of ESSER. That's become such an integral part of our program right now. And we felt like we needed to leave it in and not remove that. Again, hopefully we can work on grants and find other funding, but that's a pretty big part of what we're doing right now with those students. And then you'll see the FTEs in there. It's just based on the change in needs of the student population that we have. I'll just go all the way down to the one thing we did not pull out of this presentation, but I'll mention is with the indexing, removing the additional fine arts, increased days, because that's already indexed in their contracts.
That will add another 39,960
Yes,
to that.
yeah, to that, yes,
Maybe these fund balance less.
yeah. SysOps, I know that's been a lot of discussion. I know, Ms. Powell, you've had discussions in your listening sessions, but moving our media systems from PA to ME3, that's in your budgeted for that. So that's a request. And then one conversation we had was about our secretaries. Our secretaries are on a 245-day contract. It's our SysOps. And so adding days to the summer, increasing SysOps pay is something we could consider. But our secretaries are on a 245-day.
The financial secretaries and the SysOps are on 245s.
Yeah.
This is to correct their scale. They have,
Yeah, I think there's just a line item for possibility for summer, but they're,
Considering that, also considering others.
yeah.
I know kind of. holding that
But I know we had a conversation.
Yeah. Well, because I think their workload is growing, obviously, with the increase of students and student
Yeah.
enrollment and people coming in, moving in, doing that throughout the summer. That's, yeah.
So it was interesting, I started putting in your soup updates, our enrollment every week. And it went up 15, and from Friday to today, it went up 5. I mean, that seems small, but I mean, it's April, almost May, and they're still moving in. So. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Well, which is the thing,
Yes, yes, a
yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
moved during the summer, exactly.
The district office, I think we talked about the last time, is to just change classifications of 2 positions for the upcoming school year. And then just some clarity on the nursing allocation. That's actually on the org chart, you'll see it. It shows it's underneath Amanda, but that's a split position at Beach Hill and Sand Hill based on our enrollment increases to meet student demand there. So that's actually in a building. And then you also see in there the salary scale adjustment for our RNs.
Ready for us?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get down to our fixed cost for maintenance, though we just have some, just due to the economy and just increase of prices, so increased supply costs for maintenance, energy costs are increasing, property insurance, solid waste fees and taxes, third-party inspections, repairs and maintenance, those are all fixed costs.
How do we come up with those numbers, like, increased solid waste fees and taxes? Do they send us like what the increase is and then we calculate it out?
We are looking at our tax bills, so we were short last year, so we need to build it into the budget for next year. Same thing with our property insurance. Yes, they send us a premium and we're like, oh, we're gonna be short. Also personnel additions for some skilled labor for the maintenance department is included in here as well. We talked about replacing our Identikit with the Raptor visitor management system, which is more robust, allows us to do more background checks for a lesser price. That's just the difference between the Identikit and the Raptor is about 34,000. Under transportation, we have increased maintenance costs for the aging buses and the cost of fuel. And then the state mandated that we go to their GPS program where the buses can see where they're traveling. So we have Verizon costs for the GPS on those tablets.
Did the state fund that mandate? All right. I always like to ask that.
And then under technology, there were some items that we had we're possibly looking at using fund balance for the major technology pickups and generator. Possibly use that for capital projects funds, so we didn't put those included in the general fund request. A junior systems technology, a technician is one FTE that we're adding and some additional licensing costs for Parent Square, for ClassLink, and then just additional licenses for, we have additional devices between students and teachers, and we have to pay Microsoft licensing.
But it'll be, any district-wide program we use, we pay district licensing for. That is calculated on the number of users in the district, so obviously we're a pretty large district, so.
Do we have a breakdown of those costs? Like how much of it is going to Parent Square versus ClassLink versus?
Yes. So then we get to our total FY 25 requests. The total that you're far right is 28,156,630. Also, the next line item is the net recurring expenditures over revenue from our FY 24 budget. So we had, the board allowed us to use 4.4 million of the fund balance for last year. And some of those were one-time monies and some of those were recurring. So we did not include the one-time monies. We have to keep up with the recurring. So the 2.6 is reflective of the monies from last year. So the total revenue and other funding forecast is the same amount as our budgeted expenditures.
Can we go back? So sorry, under transportation, the monthly fee to Verizon, so were we not paying that this year? Aren't we using that this year?
We had used some monies from the prior year because of the timing difference of when it came through. We used some of the monies from the prior year. So this is,
So that's,
catch up with it in this current year. But
but is that, so that's a fee that we pay every month and we will continue to pay every month? Is that?
yes, ma'am.
That's for the annual.
Yeah.
On the next couple of sheets will be just some summaries and maybe some, and also some detail of the revenue. So this front page, this says page 103, is our 24-25 proposed general fund budget with $49,000 starting fee for supporting preliminary revenue and expenditure. So the top, we're projecting for this current year, 78.4 million of local dollars, 180.6 million of state, 100,000 of federal, and then transfers in 24. We'll show you the detail on our next page. And then the use of fund balance of the 4.6, which is what we have talked about, different line items, brings us to $288.7 million for FY 24-25 budget revenues. And for our expenditures, we started with last year's expenditures of 266 million. We subtracted off those one-time 1.8 million of the 4.4. We had these 1.8 for one-time money that was for the financial software, for Bus Depot. It was for a van for custodial, it was for those one-time items that we didn't have to build those back in. And then our state mandated expenditures from these spreadsheets that we just went through. The local required expenditures, and then the reduction of expenditures. The right-hand side that we were talking about brings us to a total of 288.7 million. So our revenues equal our expenditures.
So this is the next page is a detailed breakdown that we referred to earlier of the revenue. It does show it, if you go drop down to line 23 at the bottom, it shows the $22 million increase year over year in revenue. And then the line items up above are each individual line. Line 1, that's the $10 million increase that we showed for local. That's our tax revenue based on our increase in assessed values. Line 6 and 7 equals the 7.6 million that we talked about in state increases. That's our state aided classrooms and some other state revenue that you get projections from the state, what those numbers will be. Line 10 is our tier 3. We talked about that 2.8 million separately. And then all the other lines make up that other 1.6 million increase. But I wanted to point out just a couple of them. If you look at line 4, interest on investments, for FY 24, our budget was 500,000 and we have come in very far over that.
Yes, so far here today.
We're projecting it to stay up for 25, not quite as high as what we've actually received this year since we don't know what's going to happen with that, but we do expect it to stay significantly higher. If you drop down to line 20, the opposite side of that is our indirect costs that we've been collecting on ESSER. And since ESSER will be leaving us in September, we have a little bit of a residual indirect cost of 200,000 that we're budgeting. But that will be a significant decrease from this year because of that going away. And then the line right above that, line 19, there is a portion of that state aided classrooms that is paid separately through the Education Improvement Act. And we're getting a slight increase on that as well. And that's a number that we get a projection from the state. And then there's some other little changes on the other line items, but that is breakdown year over year. The third page of this document is just a summary recap of what we just went through line by line on the other initial budget request. Look at the expenditures and FTEs that we're adding.
If you go to the next page, again, speaking with the board and I'm trying to come up with some expenditure reduction ideas. Here's what we've come up with so far. Need you guys to take a look at this because this will play a part in that budget on whether, you know, these are truly what you want to see us eliminate. And again, going line item by line item. Based on, part of it's based on the salary study, part of it is based on our own operations. But in the first line, it's the reduction of 2 high school assistant principals. In the second line, we only had 4 administrative interns last year, but honestly, we have a really good program with the Citadel on aspiring administrators. We can generate our own and not take that because what happens is we take them out of the classroom. We have to replace them in the classroom and we're basically paying for an extra administrator at a teacher scale. So we will eliminate that program moving forward. The next one is the elimination of the district health and wellness coordinator. I think we can do, I did talk to Amanda about this, but I do think it's probably better to give one of our health and PE teachers a stipend to manage that program and work with our wellness committee. And again, that would be a considerable amount of savings. The facilities piece really is going to have to be behavior modification. I know this district did it about 10 years ago when we run into a little bit of a financial crunch and we've gotten away from it. So we need to go back and use our energy manager to help us with the increase in utilities. We can offset that by a savings. I made it very small, but again, we have 27, 28 locations. We can probably save more money than that. The residual, you already have seen of the outsourced technology department, $600,000. I like to calculate in favorable exchange. I will tell you the climate nowadays is not like it used to be 10, 15, and 20 years ago. So because the market is so tight, we're hiring teachers with more and more experience that want to come down for, you know, from another state for a second retirement or just to relocate. So the teachers who are retiring and replacing them and teachers at the bottom of the salary schedule is not as much as it used to be, but it's still a little bit of a favorable exchange there. The thing that's not exciting, but it's not bad, and you got to consider it in the budget. We have 1,842 teachers, I think. We budget for that many teachers. We always have vacancies. I'm going into a school year, and so I calculated the savings of unfilled positions last year, 70 positions. And I used that number not as a whole number, but as a partial number, so that we had money in the budget where we could pay teachers who are teaching on their prep periods and filling in, or long-term sub solutions. But that still is budgeted money that is a savings. And then, yeah, go ahead.
So, all right, the unfilled vacancies, and
Yeah.
certainly understand why we need them. So you're looking to take those out as an expenditure reduction, right?
Right.
But think about the look back, because we're adding 13 to the budget. So really, you're talking 43, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at it that way, but if you look at the positions we're adding, it's the elementary positions. I mean, I know it's a quid pro quo kind of Peter Paul thing. We'll try to fill those positions, but typically what we're having the most difficult time filling are our math, science, and special ed positions. So if you look on the FTEs, we're looking at adding, they're at the elementary level.
So what happens if we don't fill those?
Just what I explained, we have excess.
I mean, I understand that, but but we keep trying, right?
Absolutely. But I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna fill 100% of your positions. It's not gonna happen. There's just not enough. If you look at the
And so then does that
marketplace,
just mean we have more kids in the classroom?
it either means you have more kids in the classroom if it's an elementary class, or it means you hopefully have teachers at the high school level that will teach on their prep period for a little extra pay, which we do that a lot of, or you have in what I consider to be kind of unfortunate situations or long-term subs, because you want a solid classroom teacher in the classroom. You have to calculate it and consider it in the budget. But yeah, I mean, I think the fill rates right now for us are really, really good comparison percentage wise. We will always have some vacancies. Market trend right now. Board, I talked to some of you to look at reducing your travel by a third. I'll be honest, I don't think you're really spending it all anyway. Community relations, that position was an add-on really for the referendum. At the end of the election, we would absorb that position, and I reduced my travel by 25%. That's kind of where we stopped at this point. I don't think this exercise is over. We've got a district admin meeting tomorrow with all of our principals, and we'll have the same discussion with them as well and try to build this list. But I wanted to get you something in place, and I want our community to know.
Yeah, no, I agree, just to speak on that, because I feel like I've spoken with the board members individually, and I do think that it's important. We have made it, we've told Dr. Robbins that it is a priority for us to try to look at the budget and try to, find savings and cut costs wherever we can, because at this point, we really want to be pouring all of our money, any extra money, any money that can be saved into our salaries, our teacher salaries, and of course, all of our employees. But specifically, I think, it's kind of a critical time. So it's a priority for all of us. I think that's the general feel. And another thing that we talked about, obviously, when we're looking at these unfilled vacancies, talking about retention, recruitment. I mean, recruitment is very important, but retention is also a priority for us. I mean, we have a lot of excellent, fantastic educators in this district, and we do not want to lose them. So we're trying to do everything we can. We appreciate your help and support with that, because it really is, it's very important to this board, and obviously to you as well, because we know you're working hard to try to find savings.
And that was just the first shot without even talking to our buildings, and tomorrow ought to be a good conversation, and we'll create the same list. And hopefully the next time you see this, it's going to be even, it will be larger. I know it will be larger. So, so the next page, which brings us to that, I know we've had a lot of conversation on this. And again, I'm not saying that this is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do think is you try to tier it so that everybody is getting a little bit of something. Let's just look at the bottom dollar. It's $2.9 million. I did make a statement, you all know this, in our virtual town hall where I said, I'm not a huge fan of bonuses and stipends. I'd rather put it in salaries because if you're going to stay in the field, it's going to improve your retirement. However, there are some people that are really counting on bonuses and stipends. And so I think it's a delicate balance for us to make sure that we're looking at both ends of the spectrum. So again, this is kind of what I put together. It shows you the number of people that it affects and by category they're in. Again, remember, this is for all employees in our district. And you can adjust this as long as you're cautious to not adjust that bottom number. And if you want to reduce the bottom number and reduce these to put it into the salaries, just understand that by and large, it's not going to have as big of an impact as what you may think it
Well,
will.
and this is one-time money versus salary. It's
Absolutely.
recurring. I think
It is.
yes.
And so I did put it here. This is just, again, this is from an accountant I used to work with. He said, Shane, would you please have something in there for the board that says that this will be based on the availability of funds so that if we run into a tight budget year, before we cut people or we cut, any other, this would be the first thing that goes. And so I've got that in there for you as well. I do have it on the board docket tonight for you all to vote on because I would really like us to try to get these stipends out to them for the end of the school year, and we can let them know once they sign their contracts, they'll be available once we can process.
So you're requesting this out of the existing budget?
It'll always be a look back. So that way, if our revenues fall short of what we were hoping, that we know that that's not the first place we can to try to balance.
This would come from our fund balance.
And it keeps us within our 18%. Which is the goal.
I think it's important. I think it's important we get it out when they sign those contracts too.
Yeah, the goal is to get it out as soon as we could. It's on payroll's ability to process.
Speaking of the cash flow for, being able to pay out those stipends and bonuses, I just kind of wanted to show you, which we'll talk about more in our, in the meeting, in our board meeting, but we look over to the circled amount of the 23.3%. That's where we are through the end of March. But we've also forecasted out to include those bonuses in this amount in the use of fund balance. Now, as we were talking about before, to the right of that circle is the 4.4 million that we had, that the board had authorized us to use of fund balance from last year. So in order for us to bring us to 18%, we could use $10 million of that total $62.1 million to bring us to the 18%. We calculate our 18% on next year's projected budget, so we will always have 2 months plus a little of the current expenditure amount in our fund balance in our savings.
Then
It does.
A lot of work. Thank you. You're done?
what you thought?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking. We have more. We have more.
No, we're not done.
We're not.
No, we don't.
Oh, no, no. That's here. We're done at cash flow. So the next few scales represent what was proposed in the salary study. My question.
I'm just confused. I think I'm reading something. I'll ask later. I think I just have to look at it differently.
So this is to move those, principals that we were talking about, as the principals to their own scale, which takes their education and their years of experience into consideration. But we don't have to do an index for each individual. The principals for elementary will be on this scale 127. Principal for middle school will be on 128, so on and so forth. Excuse me. Personnel department comparative comparison, when you get to the last of the assistant principal at high school, you look at the comparison. Dr. Robbins, if you want to go through
The comparison sheet.
just wanted to point out that currently we only have 19 steps in our
Yeah.
admin scale. So for us to move to these new scales that are all for both level salaries, that it actually decreases and goes
The
to
number,
30
yeah.
years. And we are behind currently as compared to our other.
Where's the district scale? If it would included district admin staff.
We had focused on the.
Well, didn't you say that the proposed increase
You'll see.
included that?
It
So,
does. It does. That's not in here. That's what I was telling you about. That's the spreadsheet
okay.
that I'll get to you. I'm gonna give myself a average of myself.
No, you're fine.
I
I'm not being,
don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
I'll call you.
I do. And this was asked, so I put this in here, the custodial fees. If you wanted to put it there.
Honestly, I'll have to sit down with you because I'm just being honest. I looked at that thing so many times, I'm like, it makes no sense to me.
I'll let you sit with him. He can explain it better than I
It's
can.
a little confusing.
I'll let him explain it.
Sure, it makes perfect sense.
Explain it. Yeah, it's just the way. it
And I'd
works.
rather just skip over the ECA for now, but it's not complete. That's another thing I'm working on. The org chart, I think we talked about at the last meeting, and it's everything we kind of covered.
I did
There.
see that the one was not red, and I just want to make sure we do get it removed. Which one was it? Hold on. I think it was the athletic, the health one. It was under. What's it under?
The under operations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
coordinator of this month.
yeah, I just don't have it read. But it's on there.
I saw it was on our budget, so I just want to make sure that we didn't work here and we don't leave it on there.
I don't foresee a bunch of changes year in, year out for the org chart, but what I thought was important was the org chart would be part of the budget process because it has financial implications to it. So it'll always be a part of your budget, but there's no confusion. And this was just FYI, so you kind of had an idea of what we were basing our FTEs on. You can see the elementary school enrollment's going up considerably. Middle school, strangely enough, is not changing this year, actually going down a little bit. But I think that's just because of the young families moving in. And then we do see an increase in our school age students. So,
I see.
yeah,
On the like elementary kids.
Yeah. yeah. So. Yeah.
Registered nurse. I need to say who I am. Going that way. We sent out the last meeting, a lot of members watched from the Somerville Education Association. And so I got a few questions, and I know that the mantra is facts before feelings. So I think what they're asking for are some facts. First, we're spending a lot of money on Admentum, so and I know we had a presentation not too long ago at a board meeting about it, but what is the success rate of Admentum? Is it worth the money we're spending? I know the elementary schools used heavily. I don't know about middle and high. So I think that was the question that I know you probably can't give me the answer to right now, but that's something that we would love to hear a bit more about. As well as the use of formatives. We were talking to the old timers, like maybe we were talking a while back about how we used to we didn't give formatives. We gave our own. Like, we created our own. We knew where our students were and we knew what they needed. Even when I was younger teacher, we knew what they needed in order to be successful, whatever state testing we had at that point. So we were wondering if we had any free data, like data before we did all these formatives, and then the success rate on the state testing as compared to using formative, which none of us really like, to be quite honest. And then, is the success rate better now that we're using this, or is it the same, or? Because I know that costs a lot of money. So if we're looking to cut corners, those were two ideas. And then the third thing that came from a couple of members was more ethical than anything. Ago. I know when my kids played sports, middle school, we did have to pay money to go to watch them, and I had 5 children, and so we could not go. So the fact that we're charging people to go see their middle school students play sports was problematic with some of our members. So I don't know if does that money go to pay for fields, the upkeep? Is there any way we maybe didn't have to do that, or just charge one adult, or somehow work that out to make it more family friendly? Because middle school kids, probably there are younger children in the family as well. And
So that's an interesting concept, because what I'm used to doing is employees had a family pass. And then what we asked out of you was to work the concession stand a couple times, for your pass, or you know what I mean? So something to just help out our athletic departments to do something like that.
Employees getting free. It would be the employees are free already.
Who are you talking about? I'm sorry, then I thought.
like people who are not, whose children are on the softball team. And the parents have to come in to pay money and pay to watch the games.
Like dad, mom, brother, sister, and if it's like $7 a person, you're talking times.
I
So
understand.
I'm not sure if it just seemed not real family friendly, and I don't know.
We can look at that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to go back to your question on the formative assessment piece. You know that our state report card requirements have changed considerably. And so the formative assessment, and I'm not saying the way we do it's perfect, but I'm saying it's really, really important now versus when you and I started teaching. It's changed tremendously. So there is a huge increased need for us to provide formative assessments to make sure our students are going to be successful in that state assessment, because our schools now are not just going to be graded on their achievement, they're going to be graded on their growth. And so what I've seen happen in states that have, say your school is a highly achieving school, if your students don't grow, then you're going to receive a bad report card grade, even though you're a high achieving school. So that's part of the push between the.
But I don't disagree with formative. We've always done formatives. I wonder if we have to use the formative
Right.
system that we're using now.
Gotcha.
My question is, when we used to do it old school, are the results any better or worse than what we're using now?
So
they're looking at
what is the?
Yeah, is there a
What's the
specific?
system?
There's something.
All formative.
Yeah.
And then that's our common assessments. You've heard me talk about the common assessments. The platform is formative. The reason that we went to formative and away from, and I can't even remember right now what the last one was, is because we didn't get the district did not get the data. Only the school level got the data. So we could not see as an entire district how our schools were matching up and how they were comparing. So this way, and again, I know there's been a lot of issues with formative, I'm not saying that's the best thing out there, but when we looked the last time and went with that, that's what we did. And we didn't feel like with all of the changes this past year, that now flipping from formative would have been a good idea. So we are looking.
If there is an assessment of formative, does that mean it's the same across the district?
It's the common assessments. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
The same
So,
as the district. Yes.
They used to be as well.
right.
There's been
Right, no, I
generations of
understand we've always
stuff, but
had
a long time ago, we made our own, and they
Yeah.
were not all the same.
Yeah.
And then we went to make them all our own, and they were able to compare school by school, I think, based on just the data that the school had.
Yeah, I was gonna
And now we've gone to this program.
That was when we had E and I, and that was also, we were able to go in and get it at the district level. More expensive.
I just wondered if there was a,
Is there,
you know, is it worth the money is what I'm thinking.
is there an increased bond, should we think? Increased bond?
Actually, honestly, I don't have all the top of my head. We can find, definitely get that information.
That's number one station.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then I was gonna ask you, do you feel that, because originally we talked about switching everything to that was gonna be across state. Because we did some numbers on that, of what kind of money that the state us. Because I know you said we were gonna streamline, eliminate extra programs, and so I think that would be good to show where we have savings.
And I.
Okay. That'd be great. Yes.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you all very much.